What is up, everyone? This is Tony Picks MMA here with my very first upload. I'm super excited to be presenting you guys with my predictions for Alvarez versus Poirier number 2. If you guys enjoy this video and like my predictions, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'd also like to know your predictions in the comment sections down below with some feedback to my video. Without further ado, guys, let's get into these predictions. So kicking off the Fight Pass early prelims, we got Devin Powell squaring off with Alvaro Herrera. I'm going to be taking Devin Powell to win this one. I'm giving him the slight edge in the power department, and I see this being more of a stand-up battle. Both of these fighters have good hands, not really ground technicians, although they both do have submission victories. They don't really have impressive UFC records. Powell's 0-2, so I see him really needing this victory. Herrera is 1-2, but his only victory was his first fight in the UFC, a KO a few years ago. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Powell in this one, not really looking into it that much. I personally haven't played this one on my picks. On to the next one. Moving on to the second fight of the evening, we have Nina Ansaroff facing Randa Markos. This is going to be a pretty good fight. Both of these fighters have nearly identical records, and they're both ranked one after the other. So this is pretty interesting to see if one of these fighters can potentially break into the top 10 rankings. With Markos, we have more of a takedown wrestler fighter with good hands. She doesn't really mix in kicks often. When she gets her opponents to the ground, although she does have some submission wins, I don't think she's that threatening. She gets in some really good positions, but she's never really able to finish on the top. She doesn't have any finishes, and she's been in dominant positions in the past. With Nina Ansaroff, I find you have more of a well-rounded fighter. She can mix it up on the feet. Great kickboxing. She has volume also. Obviously, as you can see in the strikes landed per minute, Nina Ansaroff has 2 more strikes per minute, but during a fight day, this is a lot more. You see the volume of Ansaroff, her leg kicks, her movement. She just all around is constantly getting better every time you see her in the octagon. With that being said, I feel like this plays out well for Ansaroff. I feel like Markos will be pressuring her, maybe mixing the hands and going for the takedown, but I just don't think she has the edge in stand-up. Ansaroff will pick her apart in the stand-up. If Ansaroff does get taken down, she's more than able of defending herself on the ground. She does have some submission victories. I just feel like the last years have shown that Markos has kind of stayed at the same level. She was training at TriStar and then went back to, I believe it's Michigan Top Team, whereas Ansaroff, we've seen kind of skyrocket and progress, of course, being around Amanda Nunes and stuff like that and training at American Top Team. With that being said, guys, I'm going to seal in a confident pick for Nina Ansaroff on this second fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have number 9 ranked Dustin Ortiz squaring off with number 12 ranked Mateos Nicolau. I believe that's how it's pronounced. If not, I apologize, guys. This is a super exciting fight. I will not be missing this one. 2 well-rounded fighters. Mateos does have a 3-0 record inside of the UFC. A lot of hype behind him. A world of potential in front of him if he can make the proper moves and get the proper wins. Something I'd like to see more of Mateos. I'd like to see him more active inside the octagon. He's only fought 3 times in the past 3 years. He has an average of about a fight a year, whereas Ortiz has about 2 fights a year. Ortiz does have a decent record inside the octagon. He does have a 9-5 record, with 6 of those wins have been finishes, whether it's been by TKO or submission. So he's definitely able of finishing a fight and capable of that. In terms of the betting odds, Mateos is the favorite in this fight card. I see him having more advantages in the ground game. They both have good stand-up. Although Mateos has power, I'd say the slight edge in power, I don't see him having the edge in terms of variety of techniques on the feet, fluidity on the feet, head movement. I feel like all that goes to Ortiz. I feel like he's the more polished stand-up fighter. With that being said, you guys, I'm going to take Ortiz to win this by split or unanimous decision. A lot of people are sleeping on him this fight card. I feel like he'll be able to edge this one out. He's fought in high-level jiu-jitsu guys like Alexander Pantoja, so he'll be able to avoid Mateos' danger on the ground. And on the feet, I feel like he'll just be able to outpoint him, fight the smarter fight, and just win the rounds, whereas he's not going to be going for a finish. So for this one, guys, my pick is Dustin Ortiz. I'm going to give him the slightest of edges. So hopefully he takes this via unanimous or split decision. I will be putting him on one of my bet cards. Moving on to the next fight, we have number 3 ranked Alexis Davis squaring off with number 7 ranked Chookagian. In my opinion, this isn't going to be a fight to watch. This is going to be a fairly boring point fight. Alexis Davis kind of relies on her submission. She's not really a good striker, not really good wrestling at all either. Doesn't have good takedown defense. She hasn't really progressed since she's been in the UFC. She's won some big fights, but hasn't improved or moved camp. She's kind of just trained at the same spot and presented the same Alexis Davis, hasn't implemented any new things to her game. On the other side, we have Chookagian, who's training out of Renzo Gracie BJJ. She is a volume stand-up fighter, so she does throw a lot. She does have that BJJ background, of course, although she hasn't won by submission yet inside the octagon. She does have that capability. I'm going to give this fight unanimous decision to Chookagian. I feel like she'll be able to outpoint Alexis Davis anywhere on the feet. Where Alexis Davis is most dangerous is the ground, and Chookagian's more than capable of defending herself. I feel like she rolls with high-level people over at Renzo Gracie BJJ, and she'll be able to avoid any dangerous positions and just take the easy win over Alexis Davis. On to the next one, guys. We got John Makdessi versus Ross, the real deal Pearson. I don't really think any of these guys need introductions. They're kind of both vets to the octagon at least. Pearson's been around since I could remember. This is a straight-up stand-up battle. Both these guys' wins are from KO, if not decision. I mean, Ross Pearson has had some submission victories, but I can't see him shooting for a takedown or anything like that. This is just going to be a matter of who can hit who finds whose chin first. I think this will be a knockout. If it's not a knockout, it will be a boring decision because both these guys will be gassed. I'm going to edge it out to the hometown man, John Makdessi. He's younger, and I feel like he has more pop. His chin hasn't been as rocked as Ross Pearson's. So I'm going to give Makdessi by KO in the first round, if not Makdessi by unanimous decision. The next match, you got a light heavyweight battle. A pretty straightforward matchup here. You got the wrestler submission guy versus the stand-up power guy with Antigulov squaring off with the Hulk Cutelaba. The Hulk does have kind of his wins by KO. He is going to be the bigger guy this fight. He's standing at 6'1" with a 5-inch reach advantage. Antigulov is only 5'11", so he's going to have to get in and avoid those big strikes to gauge the distance, engage in the grappling, and take the fight to the ground. It's kind of a toss-up, but I do think this fight is going to be finished, either by submission Antigulov or KO to Cutelaba. With that being said, guys, I'm locking in my pick with Antigulov. I'm basing it on the fact that he hasn't lost since 2013, and he is training out of American Top Team, so they'll be able to develop a good game plan to avoid those big strikes by the Hulk and to get in and get that takedown to seal the submission. Moving on to the next fight, we have Ragin' Cajun Johnson squaring up with Islam Makkachev. Makkachev is the biggest favorite on the whole fight card. Cajun Johnson is paying $5.50 for every dollar you bet, so he is a heavy underdog. There's no surprise what you get with Makkachev. He's going to come forward, look to take you down, and bully you. He has that Dagestan Russia style where they just go nonstop, 15 hard minutes. This is going to be a tough fight for Cajun Johnson. He does have the reach advantage with 5 inches, so hopefully he can keep Makkachev at the end of his jab. He also does have 11 of his wins by submission, so it's not like he's a stranger to the ground if he gets taken down. He just may be overwhelmed by the volume and sheer power of Makkachev. With that being said, guys, I'm going to take Makkachev to take the unanimous decision win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cajun Johnson pulls off a sleeper win with a submission victory. In the next matchup, we have the highly talented Canadian prospect Mean Hakeem Dawodu squaring up against Golden Boy Austin Arnett. Dawodu is coming off of a huge upset loss, his first fight in the UFC. He did get rocked early and then submitted. Really a tough start for him, so he's got to be coming into this fight with a chip on his shoulder. Austin Arnett is coming off of an 0-2 start in the UFC. Well, he did have the Contender Series, and then he did lose in the actual UFC. Showed a lot of heart in his 2 fights. I just don't think he's going to be able to pull it off against Dawodu. I think his striking is too crisp. He has too much power. He's the quicker out of the 2. I think as long as Dawodu is able to keep the fight standing, point fight, and pick him apart, he'll get this win via pretty decisive KO at some point, whether it's the first or second round. I think he'll find an opening and put Arnett out. So my decision on this one is Dawodu with a first or second round KO. In the next fight, we have a middleweight matchup between young gun Jordan Mein and Alex the Great Wright Morono. Jordan the young gun, well, not really too young anymore. It's a veteran in the UFC at this point. Hasn't really ever impressed me in his career. At some point, he had pretty good power, but I don't really see him having that same KO power. A decent stand-up game. Doesn't really have that really good of a grappling or submission game. On the other hand, his opponent, Morono, has a decent stand-up game. I'm giving the edge on the stand-up to Mein, but if it goes to the ground, I definitely see Morono able to finishing this fight. He does train at Gracie Barra, BJJ, so he is talented on the ground. This isn't really an exciting fight for me. Just straight up pick Alex Morono, either by decision or submission win. So kicking off the main fight card, we have Alexander the Great Hernandez squaring off with the Canadian gangster Olivier Aubin-Mercier. We got the classic matchup with the stand-up power fighter in Hernandez versus the wrestler jiu-jitsu ground game Olivier Mercier. Hernandez coming off of a huge KO win of Beneil Dariush. Just played him out with that power, put him to sleep early. Clearly was enough for him to break into the top 15 rankings. A lot of talk behind him. A lot of talk behind both of these fighters looking to make a name for themselves. Aubin-Mercier's been looking to break into that ranking. I see an impressive win for either of these guys could easily skyrocket them into the top 10 and potentially see these guys break into the top 5. They really are good fighters and potential contenders. I think that key factors in this fight is Aubin-Mercier's wrestling and experience in the octagon. He's got 8 submission wins inside of the octagon, and he is a beast of a wrestler. Although Hernandez is crazy on the feet and does have power, I don't think that it's enough to seal the deal for him. I think Aubin-Mercier, training at TriStar Gym with Faraz Zahabi, will be able to devise a plan to avoid those power shots, stay out of range, to engage in that takedown or the grappling, take him down, and just punish Hernandez. I really see this being a good fight for Aubin-Mercier to finally break into the ranking like he's deserved. With that being said, you guys, I'm going to seal in my pick, Aubin-Mercier, via unanimous decision or via submission. I definitely see him putting some pressure on Hernandez to where he might cough up his back or a limb for that sub. Moving on to the second fight of the main card, we have Joana Jedrzejczyk squaring up against Tecia, the Tiny Tornado Torres. We have Joana coming off of the consecutive losses to Rose, and Torres coming off of her loss to Jessica Andrade. Although she did put in a great performance, essentially was just outpowered, out-muscled, anything. Jessica Andrade is just a beast and just kept pushing forward the whole fight. I see this playing in towards of Joanna's favor. I mean, she's obviously the best striker in that division. This fight, it's going to be hard for Torres to break in to grappling range with Joana. Of course, Torres is the shorter fighter with the 6-inch or 5-inch reach disadvantage, so she's definitely going to have to use her movement to break into Joana. The thing with Joana is she's so good at the 1-2 combos, fighting off of the jab. We've seen it against Jessica Andrade. She just picked her apart, and although Andrade was able to get her hands on her, Joanna's balance is so good. It's so hard to take her down when you get your hands on Joana. And even when you do get her down, it's hard to keep her down. I just see this being an overall very hard fight for Tecia Torres. Although the Tiny Tornado is one of my favorite females, she does always come hard and she tries to finish fights. I just think this is too much for her. Joanna's striking is too crisp. I think in order to beat Joana, you need to have a roast style to where it's more of a flow offense and it moves. Whereas Tisha Torres is very tight. She's a polished striker. It's just very tight. It's not really flow. Nothing strange is coming at her. She's moving forward. Where Rose could counter sometimes. Was picking her shots. I just feel like the pace of Torres, the way she keeps moving forward and moves, really works into Joana's striking and point fighting style. I have Joana taking this via unanimous decision or even a KO. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we have Jose Aldo squaring off with Jeremy Lil Heathen Stevens. It's a pretty interesting matchup with two guys from the opposite ends of kind of the spectrum fighting each other. You have Stevens coming off of 3 massive wins, has this huge momentum behind him, whereas Aldo's coming off of 2 tough losses to Max Holloway, where he really got beat up and took a tough loss both of those fights back to back, which is really hard to come back from. Stevens has really implemented a full game over at Alliance MMA, starting to implement those leg kicks like we've seen against Melendez. Absolutely disgusting leg kicks, nearly paralyzed him. His power has always been there. He's always had a gas tank and that he's been willing to exchange. He does have some good wrestling too, so he's able to defend the takedown if ever Aldo would shoot for the takedown, which I don't see that really happening. I see this being a stand-up battle. I see both of these fighters being willing to exchange in the pocket, stand there and exchange. Aldo is questionable with his chin and his gas tank. It's definitely not the same Aldo we're seeing anymore, although I still have that respect for him as a champion, Jose Aldo, in terms of betting and prediction-wise. I can't have that confidence like I would have had on him previously. With that being said, I feel like after the first or second round, Aldo's going to be in deep trouble. Jeremy Stevens keeps coming forward and he's going to push the pressure. He has power to put people to sleep. I'm going to pick Stevens via unanimous decision or via KO in the second or third round. Moving on to the main event of the evening, we have Eddie the Underground King Alvarez squaring off with Dustin the Diamond Poirier in their rematch. Their first fight was very controversial, of course, that no contest. So I look at both of these fighters to be coming into this fight with a chip on their shoulders, looking to prove a point to the other fighter, not just win, but win unanimously and kind of dominate. I feel like the stand-up edge in terms of power goes to Alvarez, but in terms of cleanliness in their strikes, putting together their strikes, finishing with the leg kicks, I feel like Poirier has that advantage. He's really tightened up his game in the last few years. I'm going to give the wrestling advantage, of course, to Eddie Alvarez. He's just a beast. Does have that that top level wrestling. He does attempt the takedowns during the fights too. I wonder if he's going to implement it this fight if the top game isn't working for him that well, if he's going to look for the takedown. He did say that he was going to make adjustments from the last fight to this fight, so I look forward to seeing those adjustments that he makes. If it goes into the later rounds, I'm going to give the advantage to Eddie Alvarez. He's just a cardio beast, and he just throws hard the full fight. I've seen Poirier fade a bit at the end of the Gaethje fight, although he did get the finish in the 4th round. Poirier did seem gassed. He kind of threw a lazy jab and just connected and landed flush with Gaethje. With that being said, guys, I'm going to give the edge here to Eddie Alvarez. I feel like if this fight goes into the later rounds, he'll be able to get the finish and make those adjustments required. Whereas Dustin Poirier will more be an early finish. If he's not able to get that, I feel like Eddie Alvarez is really going to take him into deep waters, and he's going to not make the same mistake he did last fight. Although he was rocked early, I found that he was winning the fight near the end. Had he not kneed him in the head, I feel like that fight could have easily went Eddie Alvarez's way. So I'm going to give it to Eddie Alvarez via unanimous decision if it goes late. If it's ending early, I feel like Poirier will take that advantage. But my final pick is Eddie Alvarez with the win. I'd also like to throw in, guys, Sammy Lights Out Segs, the Lights Out pick of the week. He's predicting Joana Jedrzejczyk to win by unanimous decision. That has been it for my predictions. I really hope you guys enjoyed my first video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of this video. Some tips for me on the next one. Maybe some feedback also. And I'd also like to know your predictions also, guys. Thank you for joining me. This is Tony Picks MMA, and I'm out.